Have you ever tried to do something that sounded like a great idea at the time, and in the end didn't quite turn out like you expected? Well, today we're going to look back at a time when I tried to flex my literary muscles, only to discover that I probably didn't have any. Yes, friends, once upon a time, I tried to write and publish a book. I know, this should be good, right? Hi, friend. How are you? Oh, we have a little butt woohoo friend. Hello. Oh, you're a nothing little cat. You need some food. Let's go shopping for that one later. Oh, whoa. We have more. Hi, friends. Now, if you're new here, I'm Rick. How are you doing? I am what you call a nomad. I normally live in a school bus, what they used to call, well, being a bum, living down by the river. But today I am in Antalya, Turkey. I don't even know where I am anymore. And we are talking about that time when I tried to become a famous author. You ready for the sad, sad story? Okay, I just had to get out of that cramped apartment because a story of this grandiose nature needs a grandiose place. We're going to walk down to Duden Park. You're going to love what you see at the end of it. And there we will tell the story of my dead Uncle Jimmy. So a long time ago, on a day where I was supposed to be, well, doing productive work for my then employer, I decided instead to write a letter to my Uncle Jimmy. Now, as I mentioned, my Uncle Jimmy was dead, and I really didn't know how I was supposed to send this letter to him. It sounds crazy, right? Was I supposed to use Angel's Express? Devil's Express? There was some question in the family as to which one of those we should be using. Now, I was in Europe at the time, and I just started writing him letter after letter after letter, and then I had the bright idea. I said, Rick, why don't you take all these letters and put them into a book and publish it for the world to see? And that's actually not entirely true. I actually kind of had the thought of the book, and then I wrote the letters. I mean, I'm crazy, right? But writing letters to a dead uncle and then... Now, even I'm not that insane. And so, whoa, this bridge is slightly unstable. 25 chapters, 109 pages of unfathomable goodness. The splash in the literary world that this was going to make, just brings tears to your eyes. Well, a little bit, I'll tell you how many tears you should actually cry. You're not going to need a lot of tissues. So in reality, I actually thought that it would be of fairly wide interest. It was a travel novel of sorts. And so I used Amazon self-publishing to self-publish it. I figured, honestly, maybe initially I'd sell a couple hundred copies and maybe start getting my name out there as a possible author. And so I took that final draft and I proofread it over and over and over again. And despite still having several typos in it, I released that puppy out into the world. And I waited. And I waited. And I waited. And while you're waiting for the rest of the publishing story, I'm going to hark back into the future, where future me is going to read you the first chapter in fine dramatic fashion. I'll spare you the other 24 chapters. You can thank me later. Anyway, Rick in the future, take it away. Letters to a Dead Uncle by Rick Higgins, author. Chapter 1, the before the after. Uncle Jimmy, wow, it's been a long time. How have you been? Besides dead, I mean. I don't know if anyone prayed the news up to you yet, but I'm about to return to Europe to live for a few months. And while my girlfriend and I are wandering over there, I'd love to write to you every now and again. Share some stories, ask for advice, that sort of thing. Maybe hark back to prior travels and poke fun at myself. I'm assuming you've got some free time on your hands? Now, you did hear about our prior European trip, right? 9 countries in 3 months, way back in 2017. Well, despite that sounding like some unpleasant and maniacal tourist vacation, I actually did spend most of my days trying to live like the locals. And I had quite the incredible experience. As I'm sitting here waiting, not so patiently, for the launch date to arrive, there are so many great memories from that last trip that have just been replaying in my mind. Here's one for you. Picture the scene. We are just finishing up dinner at an outdoor cafe in Cologne, Germany. Only Nikki and I, and it's just a chilly and wet night. Most sane folks are at home and they're warm and dry. And just past her shoulder, I can see the train bridge crossing over the Rhine River with the lights twinkling in the mist. She and I were just chatting, just nothing that I remember as being consequential, when suddenly I was struck with a really curious thought. How in the hell did I get there? Here I was, this spawn of a blue-collar upbringing, a man who had never had expectations of international travel when he was young and impressionable, who was now sitting in a European cafe and calmly blathering on like it was normal, and realizing that for the prior who knew how many years, had been doing so in so many places, too many to count. Even as I continued to chat like nothing had just happened in my mind, I was deeply remembering the guy that I had left less than a dozen years earlier. The one who really wanted nothing more than just to build his white picket fences and to live an ordinary life. And now, somehow, that guy's nirvana of having a single family home was completely missing. His home was everywhere now. This is some pretty deep shit, right? Our travels back in 2017 were actually comprised of two very different experiences. One designed specifically for Nikki, and the other for my more staid sensibilities. Mine was the first half in Barcelona, with a rented apartment and lots of plans on the calendar. The second half was Nikki's Gypsy Trail, where we would just bounce around wherever serendipity took us. I still find it extremely pleasing that I was able to thrive in each different flavor of travel, planned and spontaneous. And that despite the two types being such polar opposites of the other, that I was actually pretty comfortable in both. A real learning experience. Okay, I have to switch hands because the laptop's getting really heavy. Anyway, life hit me very strongly that drizzly evening in Germany. I was simply on top of the world. I suppose that is why I like to think of myself as a traveler, or perhaps a better name might be a collector of experiences. It's also why I often compare myself to you. I've always envisioned my favorite uncle living for that moment of emotional overload and clarity, that feeling of carrying one's home everywhere you go. So, again, I find myself heading to Spain. And since I did the bulk of the planning for this one, you can guess which flavor of travel we mostly have before us. Spreadsheets and calendars they just seem to be in my head. What can I say? Whew, gotta change hands one last time. We're getting near the end. Now, to give myself some credit, I only planned the home base, and the getting there, and the getting back, and maybe a trip or three in the middle, along with some other events, but the rest, I will leave to hearts and whims. I promise. I know what you're thinking. But to cut myself some slack, now that I've had a couple of years since Europe 2017 to contemplate the lessons of that fine trip, I realized that maybe the best way to travel and explore is somewhere in the middle of spontaneous and planned, and perhaps also in both. Now, one last thing before I let you go. It's weird, but I can't seem to get out of my head that something has to happen after. I'm not even there yet, and I'm already pondering my future. You're probably shaking your head ruefully right about now, but despite that reaction, I think as I write to you over the next few months, I will also solicit your opinions on that subject. So get your advice ready, and I'm sure that's something you still do really, really well, your opinionated sense of humor. Okay, my favorite uncle, I need to go. I have to finish packing and getting everything ready. And the next time I write will be from sunny Barcelona. Your now pen pal and always favorite nephew, Rick. So I know you're probably asking, who in the hell is Uncle Jimmy? Well, he was my father's brother, and he was unlike any other human being I had ever met. Now, bear in mind, I grew up in an all-white, blue-collar, homogenous world where everybody thought, acted, and did the same things. Uncle Jimmy was different. He was a world traveler. He had a very special job with one of those three-letter acronym agencies. He was amazing. Where everyone else kind of had issues with Uncle Jimmy because he could be slightly opinionated, I adored him. He was everything that I had never experienced before. So naturally, when I decided to write some letters about my own stepping outside of the box into the world of, well, not white, blue collar, it had to be him that I wrote to, right? Now, here's the fun part. If I had shared any part of what I shared in that book with him directly, he inevitably would have told me I was a moron and to stop being so whiny and dramatic. But, you know, with him being dead, I felt pretty comfortable unloading my soul. Now, I know what you are saying because, you know, you and I, we've got you want to know where you can get a copy of this book for yourself. You want to know what happens in those other 20-some chapters. And I hope you can hear me over the roaring water, but I have an answer. I'll give it to you for free. There is a PDF of the entire book out on Patreon. I know, but you don't have to pay for it there. Patreon is absolutely completely free. Membership costs you an email address. Head on over there. There's a link below if you want to go directly to the PDF and read it at your own pleasure. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff too. So become a member, stick around, enjoy all the other hijinks and behind the scenes goodness that I throw over there. But we were talking publishing and I'm talking Patreon. So let's get back to it. So it has been 5 years since I released that glorious tome out into the world. Do you want to know how many copies I've sold? Do you want to know how much money I made off of that book? $14. And honestly, I think just about every single person who bought a copy was somebody who physically knew me and took pity on me. So yes, an award-winning published author, I am not. And here's the absolute crazy part. I did it again. Twice. I self-published 2 more books. One was something about resiliency, and the other one was titled 21 Days Towards Life Mastery. This guy is going to tell somebody how to master life. Well, I guess if you act like you know what you're talking about, somebody might buy your book. Nobody did. So there you go, Rick Higgins, award-winning author. Now, I am toying with the idea of taking Letters to a Dead Uncle and making an audio book out of it using this lovely baritone voice of mine, but I need a favor from you, all of you. Go down into the comments and talk me out of it. Tell me what a horrible idea it would be to take that mess of a book and just let it continue living. It needs to die. It probably just needs to die. Oh, I forgot. I told you that there's something, a rainbow, literally, at the end of this walk. So while we're heading over there, be healthy, be happy, and we will see you soon.